I want to talk a little bit about, what happened to my portrait over here. Vine charcoal is so easy to smudge, and it's going to happen no matter what, especially if you carry it in your portfolio between the pages. As the pages rub together, you'll be smudged for sure. So one thing you could do is you can take a brush and go in the direction of these planes, and it's not going to fix it completely, but it's going to at least soften all of these imperfections, or it's not going to be so linear. So you basically flatten everything, and that's going to give you a good base for, again, to work on top of and add changes to. That's almost fixed in there. So I'm smoothing things out. And then when we use the compressed charcoal, that's what we're going to do with little studies. It actually fixes it into place, and we can go over the top. With a harder pencil, it pretty much is similar to this medium value of vine charcoal. But what it does, it fixes it into place so it doesn't smudge quite as easily. So you can revise this. If you press down harder, you can make things a little bit darker. But we're not doing it in a linear way, but rather as a kind of a tonal mass. And it kind of pushes the vine charcoal around too on the surface as it replaces the vine charcoal. So I hope you could use that little hint, little, what is it, tip. All right, so let me take that down. Oh, what is this? Elvis. Down to. And so let me do this demo. I have a bunch of images on the left that I'm gonna just use random images of academic drawing. There are a bunch of poses that I can put clothing on top of if I need to. Or I can use some of my drawings, or you can use any photographic drawings, but I use the particular drawings that are not copyrighted. You guys can use for your own artwork any type of drawings as a reference. I'm just not sure if I can use it for my videos. So this is what we're going to be doing. I did this in class as a demo before, just thinking about the images of students that we drew, and some maybe invented figures, and then I invented the lighting and the environment. A lot of it is kind of like the room 197 that you might be familiar with, but I invent some of the things that I seen and understood. I'm not just copying things necessarily, although you could use references of the environment also. So I'm gonna look at these little figurines, and I got also my own drawings in here. And I'm gonna start using vine charcoal. One good idea is to draw the initial format in which you're gonna be placing things. So maybe I'll try a vertical format for this one, something different. And you start with these initial lines, because whatever you place, remember, it interacts with these lines. We're creating negative and positive spaces. But if we frame it like this, we can always shift and move the frame if we want to add a little bit of space somewhere. So I'm going to look at the different poses. I'm going to look at this pose over here. I know it's tiny, but it doesn't matter. Now think about where I want to place it. Just like with other drawings, we're thinking about the top, bottom, the middle point, and you can draw it in a gestural way. This is where simplification becomes very helpful. Here's one leg. I'm gonna actually put the legs farther apart because I'm thinking that I want to create a deep space as things move in and out of space. So I'm gonna actually shift things and change things a little bit. So here's that foot, here's this leg. Her arm goes from the shoulder like this. I'm gonna make the elbow come out a little bit more. And the hand's gonna go around back like this. And I like that she's looking away, kind of into the distance. I'm gonna block in the head. That's a good start for me because I can easily shift some of these shapes and adjust them. You know, I can erase things, but it gives me already enough information for what this figure is doing, and maybe I will think about placing another figure. Let's think what we like in here. Maybe something forward facing, but something that doesn't look like a model pose necessarily. So I'm gonna use this one. Let me open it here. And I'm gonna place it maybe a little bit more in the distance. And I like that movement moving away for the leg. Maybe I'm gonna make it like this and make this other leg almost go off the page. I don't want to crop just at the knee. One thing I wanted to tell you is that one thing you want to avoid is cropping in the joints, because that makes a very awkward point where we don't know what's happening at that area with the rest of the leg. So maybe I'm gonna push it in just a little bit. I don't want an area of contact in here, so let me put it somewhere here, but also wanted to make it smaller. As this figure from here moves back, it's gonna get a bit smaller. So I think the head would be over here, the buttock's gonna be here, the leg is here, so I'm gonna end up with significantly smaller body. Definitely don't want to make them the same. If you make the same size, but it's pushed back on that plane, it's just gonna look like a giant figure in there. So I got the gesture for the body, the gesture for the leg, the gesture for another leg coming across this way. And I look back, I got the negative space in here. Maybe I make the arm go this way, or maybe not. So I don't have to stick to the exact poses in here. Now she's looking to the right. How do I like the interaction between these figures so far? Maybe I can make it a little bit smaller. And how can I make that even more interesting? So maybe two figures, it's not that fantastic. Someone said, oh, 3 figures, someone didn't like the idea of 3 figures. Too typical, maybe you were saying. But the more the merrier, I would say, the more complex. Let's say I don't deal with the figure, but I think of what else I can add in here to make that space exciting. Well, first of all, what's the subject matter? How can maybe I use the lighting to eliminate this, to make it exciting? So maybe I can make this person reach in here with an arm coming out. And it will be something about them interacting. And interacting is interesting. And I want the light to be on this figure, so maybe I'll make the light coming from here. And I can start finding the terminator line on all of these parts. Maybe make that figure not naked. Cast shadows. Well, this is all shadow. This is all shadow. Just mask them out. Shadow with a hand and a back. And this whole figure might be out of the cone of light altogether. Maybe the light is in the middle of the room, kind of shining in that one direction. It's all experimental, so it doesn't have to be too logical. We're trying to create some kind of content. So if this is this figure, I also want to think about the environment. What can I do with the environment? Maybe I'm going to make a table in between that's in the light. Now, obviously, underneath, it will be all shadow. And this figure maybe is standing on, sitting on some kind of a chair. So all of that perhaps will be in the shadow. So I'm going to first give it a little bit of a tone for the whole space. The light is coming like this, so there will be probably shadow all on the bottom over here. Maybe just a little bit on the floor that would not be a shadow. I still remember the idea in there, and I can bring it back. So even the table, you know, we can darken it a little bit so there's gradations like this. And then I'm gonna get my eraser and bring some of that back. Here's my eraser. Great. Just a second. Great. So it doesn't look like I see any erasers here. I'm going to use a regular eraser, which is not ideal because it adds a lot of junk, keeps a lot of junk in there. But I'm going to erase the light value here. I'm going to think about the light values like the top of the shoulder back and create some sharper edges in some areas. So just quickly build up, especially this arm that needs to be the focus point in here. And I probably need to darken a lot of the areas still. So what I'm going to think about is, okay, what else I can create in there so we understand that environment. Maybe I will create a little bit of a darker corner in the back. So the background may be darker than her skin tone. That can be a he also. the change. It can change with whatever story I'm trying to, whatever story I'm going to come up with in the end. I like that space above too. Could change it, but I like it, so I might not change it. And here we have a little bit more of the corner for the table. And define that a little bit more. That perspectival plane of the table, we got to make sure that we get a little bit of perspective on it. A little bit of the light on the stomach, the front of the legs. Maybe at some point we'll get a more shadow on the bottom of the legs. Here's the core shadow, core shadow, core shadow, core shadow. Get a little bit more of that in there. We're trying to get to the idea. It's not a finished drawing, but we're trying to clearly get the feeling of what we're trying to represent in there. And what else can we make to make that more exciting? I have to ask myself, what do I want to see here? Does that make sense that there is light over there? Maybe. Here's the foot. It's interesting little overlapping shapes. The shape of one value against the shape of another value. So here's the shadow coming off maybe from the figure. Here's the light on top of the foot. It looks like actually this whole thing would be in the light. And let me bring the silhouette back of this figure a little bit too, so we see it. Maybe this arm should go on the table and it comes into the light. Cast shadow under the arm. And a little clear shape of the table here. Clear shape of the cast shadow. So we're inventing things. Now, some of these things could be hard. They're very hard at first, and then they become easier and easier with each study that you make, and as you start figuring out how different things can be invented. Maybe a face. Now, there, you know, and you can spend a bit of time of moving and thinking about things, starting in different composition and coming back to this one to revise it. Maybe there's a bottom of the wall coming through like this. What's going on with her legs? I already forgot. It goes like this, I think. And what kind of movement am I creating too? So I'm not just focusing on the subjects, but overall, how we're moving our eye across the whole picture in here. So we want to think of what's the main focus point, where we would lead the eye with the movements of the planes and the shapes that are in the light the most. How do things move across and move here? How can we move it across in this direction? Maybe we can suggest, let's say, a window. And that allows us to have other shapes that move in here. Maybe we can have a curtain on the side in here. And then maybe inside the window, there will be some strong shapes, you know, be it, maybe that is the light source. So we have a light coming from the back. So that's why it's silhouetted like this. Now she's leaning more over here. Maybe this leg needs to come down to the floor. And this is the one that's bent like this. So that creates all kinds of movements all around the space. Landscape. So I did not envision any of this in my head before, and now I have it. And I decide what I want to do with it. Do I like it? Do I understand what's going on over there? What this object would be in in there? I can think about it, but it at least already something that did not exist a few minutes ago. And if I do a 50 of these, I might realize the kind of things that I like, which one is really speaks to you and that I want to keep, and I can work with it. I already have something that I didn't have before that I can work with, and I can start making more artworks. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Thank you. So, and we can adjust these. We can add, you know, I can extend it to the right and add more information, for example. So you can shift, like if you don't like some part of it at all, you just go ahead and erase it and redo it. You know, make this figure maybe try to look more outside. You can start working with it. That's why Vine Charcoal is great. But I forgot to talk about compressed charcoal. You know, you can play around with the compressed charcoal afterwards and start solidifying things a little bit and add more value. If you need more value, now compressed charcoal is what will give you that, provide you with that extra value contrast. It's not as powdery. You can develop things with more precision. Now, you don't have to have too much detail too, but you need to create a big proportionate information. So what's the light source? What's the main focus points? What are the big movements in the space and of the figure? So we're feeling the distribution of important elements like shapes, for example. Vine charcoal solidifies it too, so it will be a lot harder to erase it now and adjust it. So you want to keep it until the end in vine charcoal, not compressed charcoal. When you're sure of some composition, you can take it and develop it a lot further and adjust things. But then we're gonna start making specific detailed studies for this figure. So you can ask your family member, can you stand like this? Let me draw you. And then you start utilizing that information into your composition. So does that make sense? Do you guys see what the assignment is about? Do you have questions about it?
How big do they have to be again?
I'm drawing it 9 by 12.
9 by 12?
You can see